Hello, nice to meet you. My name is Nicholas and I am part of Entry Tramites team. Today we wanted to make this video to share with all of you a presentation regarding taxes for autonomous in Spain. The first thing we wanted to talk about is to tell you some of the most common mistakes when filing taxes as autonomous in Spain. When it comes to filing your taxes as autonomous, there are some misconceptions that most of the people have. For starters, the most common misconception is that autonomous have higher taxes than any other taxpayer, but this is not true. The tax is the same. What changes here is the moment where you're going to pay your taxes. So, for example, a usual employee, they only have to pay for their taxes annually. What happens with autonomous? They also pay taxes annually, but they also have to make some quarterly declarations. These quarterly declarations are basically advance payments on their taxes. So as a usual employee, what an employer does for you is they make retentions out of your salary. An autonomo has to do personally a retention out of its salary and pay quarterly an advance payment for his annual taxes. Another misunderstandings is which are the deductible expenses. They incorrectly categorize their income. They don't have proper keeping of their records, or they ignore their tax deadlines. This is very important because in case you fall under one of these scenarios, it can happen that you get fined by the tax agency. Another common misconception is the failure to seek professional advice. So it is important for you to always understand that if you don't understand something, we are always open here for you. Another important difference we need to do here. There are some persons that are business or there are some professional activities. So before we move forward with this slide, let's take a look at the differentiation. First thing, a business is if you have workers or a premises or a physical place to carry out your activity. And you are considered a professional if you do not have workers or premises or a physical place. So you may think that a professional is someone with a degree, but it also includes someone that is a computer scientist, a translator, a beautician, a makeup artist, etc. Taking into account this differentiation, let's move forward with this slide. So as you can see, we have here some categories. The categories are the number which identifies specifically your activity in the tax agency. So either you are a graphic designer or a coach or a business consultant, each one of these three activities, they have their own category and their own number. Now, let's move forward with the taxation overview for autonomous. What happens with the taxes for autonomous? So, as I explained previously, there is an income tax that is paid by every single taxpayer in Spain. The differentiation here is the moment that you have to do the declaration for this income tax. So, the autonomous have to do their quarterly presentation, and this is done through Model 130. Regarding the VAT, which is the tax that you have to charge your clients for the service you're providing here in Spain or the European Union, this is being made also quarterly through Model 303. So in this report, you detail the VAT that you have been collected and also the VAT that you have already paid on purchases. And you make the differentiation in order for the tax agency to either refund you the money or you are going to pay them the VAT that you have been collecting out of your clients. Another quarterly taxes you can take a look at is the income tax withholdings and the tax on economic activities, commonly known as IAE. Regarding the annual taxes, there is the annual tax that we have already talked about, but there is also an annual VAT summary that you have to make a presentation on. And finally, another annual information returns is Model 180 and Model 190. Now, let's talk more about the personal income tax. The personal income tax here in Spain is commonly known in Spanish as Impuesto sobre la Renta de las Personas Físicas. In English, it is commonly known as the Income Tax Return Declaration. So, for fiscal residents, take into account a fiscal resident is that person who has been in Spain for more than 183 days during the fiscal year, the fiscal year goes from January to December of each year. This is the tax levied on the income earned during the fiscal year. So for 2025, Spain follows a system in which there is progressive tax brackets. So this means the higher your income, the more taxes you have to pay in Spain. So we will take a look a little bit on how much will these brackets be. It is important to file the annual tax return before the deadline. When is the deadline, you may be asking? So taxes are always paid during the following year after you have generated the income. So for example, for 2024, the declaration will be done between April and June of 2025. It is always being made between April and June after the following year of the income. So taking this into account, let's take a look at the approximate brackets. There is another differentiation we have to do before I start speaking about the numbers, and it is that taxes in Spain are paid 50% to the state, 50% to the autonomous community where you are residing. So each autonomous community has their own tax brackets. What happens, for example, Catalonia and Madrid have different tax brackets, and the other 50%, which is the state brackets, that will be the same table for all taxpayers. So let's take a look at the state brackets. For 2025, the following are the brackets. The first bracket will be between €0 and up to 12,450 euros. The withholding is a 19%. In the second bracket, 12,450 euros and 20,200 euros, the withholding is a 24%. In the third bracket, from 20,200 euros to 35,200 euros, the taxpayer will pay a 30% of personal income tax. And the fourth bracket, between 35,200 euros and 60,000 euros, a 37% withholding is applied. In the fifth bracket, between 60,000 euros and 300,000 euros, the withholding is a 45%. And whatever amount that exceeds the 300,000 euros, you are subject to a 47% on taxes. Now, let's take a little bit better look at the VAT. This is a slide that talks specifically about therapists. But before we move forward, looking specifically at therapists, let's take a look at the differentiation on the different VAT there is. So there is an IVA repercutido and an IVA soportado. In English, a charged VAT and a paid VAT. So as I explained previously, there is one VAT you have to charge to your clients, but it's also one VAT that you have already paid for the purchases that you have done as an autonomous. This is where the differentiation comes. The VAT charge is the tax that you had to add to your invoices for the service or the product you have provided to your clients. This is the IVA repercutido. Commonly, VAT is at 21%, but there are some products and some scenarios in which you can charge either 4% or 10%. It depends specifically on what you are providing to your client. So, as an example here, if you charge 100 euros for a product or a service, you have to charge an extra 21%, and the total of the product will be 121 euros. Now, regarding the paid VAT, the paid VAT is the tax that you have already paid for the purchase of goods or services necessary for your professional activity. So, for example, if you buy therapeutic materials for 100 euros and the VAT rate is 21%, you will have paid already 121 euros and 21% for VAT purposes. Now, there is an offsetting of the VAT. So there is an offsetting between the VAT that you have already paid and the VAT that you have charged your clients. So you can make these quarterly declarations we were talking about previously through Form 303, in which you tell the tax agency, I charge my clients this, but I have already paid this. So they make the offsetting and they can tell you either You have to pay them something, or you don't have to pay anything. Or it can even happen that they give you back that VAT. Now, understanding this, let's take a look at this slide for therapists. So, as I said, VAT depends on the activity. This is regulated in Article 20 of Law 37 of 1992. So if you're a psychologist or you're licensed and you clinic services, for example, you're exempt from VAT. If you're a therapist or a coach or a psychologist non-clinical, then the invoice might include a 21%. What happens in these other scenarios? I already said it. That can be either a 10% or a 4% VAT. The 10% will be, for example, for bars, restaurants, hotels, and art. 4% can be for pharmaceuticals or newspapers. Unexempt, we already said it, clinical professionals or experts in this case. And another exemptions will be transport, healthcare, and education. Okay, so here we ponder the question, why should I file the quarterly VAT with the tax agency? So first, let's take a look at what are the quarters of the year. The first quarter goes from January to March. Second quarter goes from May to June. The third quarter of the year goes from August to September. And the final quarter of the year goes from October to December. Now, that's why we have to take a look at when you should file the quarterly taxes for VAT. The first quarter goes, the filing presentation is from April 1st to April 20th. The second quarter filing presentation is from July 1st to July 20th. The third quarter filing presentation is from October 1st to October 20th. And the fourth and last quarter of the year is from January 1st to January 30th of the following year. Now, let's take a look at what is the autonomo quota in Spain for Social Security. When you register as an autónomo, you will be registered in a specific regime for autónomos. This is called the RETA. The RETA is basically the special regime for freelancers. And once you make the registration, you are agreeing to pay the amount of the Social Security system in Spain. In the monthly payment as a freelancer, there are covered 6 areas. First one, common illness, that is at 28.3% you have to pay. The second one will be work-related illness or accidents, that is at 1.3%. The cessation of activity, only after the flat rate is over. We will talk about it later. That will be at 0.99%, sorry. The professional training, that will be at 0.1%. And another extra percentage you need to take into account is a special tax that has been added during the past years in order to keep the value of any pensions that have been paid in Spain. That will be a 0.8% for the current 2025 year. And how much you have to pay, it depends on the monthly income that you receive. Up to 670 euros, it will be 230 euros, and that will be leave it up and take into account the following brackets I am showing you on the screen. Now, I already said it, but I haven't explained it yet. We have a flat rate here in Spain. The flat rate for autónomos, commonly known in Spanish as tarifa plana, is a special scheme designed to encourage entrepreneurships by offering reduced social security contributions for the new self-employed individuals. What happens with this flat rate? This is basically a benefit they are giving for new autónomos for them to realize if being an autónomo will be good for them or not during the first year. Now, during this first year, you only have to pay per month 87.19 euros. But there is a little disadvantage here, and it is that you can't apply for cease of activities benefit. And what will be the requirements for you to apply for it? The first one, having been registered as an autónomo for the 2 years immediately preceding the date of your registration, not being a collaborating self-employed, and don't have any outstanding debts with Social Security and the tax agency. What other benefits have been registered under the health-related professional activity? When you register as it, you have access to different benefits, but the main one is that you won't be required to pay the VAT. So this will be translated into a 21 extra percent on your income. You also may be able to apply it for the following benefits: tax deductions, tax exemptions, investment benefits, and reduction of tax rates. Having all of this clear, then we can move forward and talk a little bit more about the tax deductions that you can apply as an autonomo. The first thing you may be wondering, what expenses can you deduct? Let's talk first about this. The general rule is that all those expenses that are directly related to your economic activity are deductible from your taxes. This means that these criteria can be relatively subject depending on the economic activity that you develop. So there are some deductions some autonomous can make that others don't. Again, it depends on the type of economic activity that you develop. Regarding the different expenses that you can make, these are materials and goods necessary for the business, hiring independent professional services, advertising and business cards, attendance at fairs or events related to your activity, subscriptions to professional journals and training, phone and internet. There is something very specific regarding this, and it is combined with the rent. You can only make a deduction on those up to a 30% of their total value. You can also make a deduction on travel expenses, consumables, insurance, employees on payroll, repair and maintenance expenses, and also on your social security. And for example, if you hire a gestoria, there is also a deduction you can make on what you pay to your gestor. There is another question here. When is VAT refunded to autonomous? As we previously talked about it, there are two types of VAT. So this is under the example in which the settlement of the VAT is negative, so it is in your favor. This means that during that period, you don't have to pay anything to the tax agency. So in this case, you will have two options. Either you offset or receive a refund. In practice, many self-employed workers choose to compensate during the year and only request the refund when filing the Form 303 of the last quarter. This means January of the following year, as explained previously. At that time, you can check the corresponding box to request the refund of the balance in your favor. It is important to keep in mind that Hacienda does not automatically refund the amount. Before doing so, they may review your accounting, request additional information, or carry out verifications. That is why it's important to have all the documents well filed. The legal deadline for the Treasury to make the refund is 6 months from the end of the deadline for filing Form 303 of the fourth quarter. If after that time you have not received the amount and no incident has been notified, you can claim late payment interest. So, taking this all and how it is all clear, we thank you for being here today. We hope this has been very nutritious for you, that it works for you in the practice, and we hope the best for you as autonomous. If you have any other further questions in the future, don't hesitate to schedule a free consultation with one of our specialists just by scanning the following QR code.
For more information, remember to check our website and follow us on our social media platforms. You'll find the link in the description box below. And if you want to stay ahead of the curve with expert guidance on streamlining your paperwork, be sure to hit that subscribe button and stay tuned to our channel.